everyone, welcome back to Jollibee Janice. Today I will be sharing an interesting Malaysian company law case which is Dato' Azizan and Concrete Parade. This case concerns a dispute between the majority and minority shareholders of a public listed company and raises questions about shareholder operations. In this case, Concrete Parade, a minority shareholders of Apex Equity, brought an operation actions under Section 346 of the Companies Act against the Apex Equity and its director. So the claim was based on two main transactions, a proposed merger and private placement of shares, and also a series of share buyback transactions. Let's begin with the first transaction. So Apex Equity proposed a merger between its wholly owned subsidiary, which is JF Apex Security Berhad and Mercury Security Sembilan Berhad. To finance the merger, Apex Equity also proposed a private placement of new shares. So both proposals were approved by the majority of shareholders at extraordinary general meetings. However, Concrete Parade argued that the merger agreement had been entered into without the necessary approval required under Section 223 of the Companies Act. It also contended that the private placement breached Section 85, which protects shareholder preemptive right. Thus, this contravention causing unfair prejudice to its interests as a minority shareholders. While for the share buyback transactions, Concrete Parade argued that these transactions, together with the subsequent court validation proceedings, were invalid and oppressive because they breached Section 127 of the Companies Act. According to Concrete Parade, the transactions were undertaken without prior shareholder approval, and this depriving shareholder of the opportunity to object. So, the High Court dismissed the operation option. However, on appeal, the Court of Appeal reversed the decisions and the matter was then brought before the Federal Court. So, what did the Federal Court judge decide? To help us understand the judgment, let's now welcome Professor Wong.
The issue in this case is whether the Court of Appeal was correct in concluding that Concrete Parade suffered oppression perpetrated by the wrongful acts of the majority. In this case, the Federal Court allowed the appeal and reinstated the High Court's decision, holding that the alleged breach of Section 85, 223, and 127 of the Companies Act did not amount to oppression under Section 346. First, regarding Section 85 on preemptive rights, the Court held that these rights are subject to the company's constitution. Since the shareholder had approved the private placement at the extraordinary general meeting, they effectively waived their preemptive rights. Therefore, there was no unfair prejudice against Concrete Parade. Second, concerning Section 223 and the proposed merger, the Court ruled that the directors could enter into conditional merger agreements before obtaining shareholder approval. As the merger was later approved by majority of shareholders, Concrete Parade could not show any unfair prejudice distinct from other shareholders. Finally, on the share buyback transaction under Section 127, the Court held that a statutory breach does not automatically make a transaction void or illegal. Since the transactions were not prohibited by the Act and affected all shareholders equally, they could not form the basis of an oppression claim. In conclusion, the Court emphasized that Section 346 cannot be used to challenge commercial decisions that have been validly approved by the majority unless genuine unfair prejudice can be proven.
Thank you, Professor, for joining us today. So now we have heard the facts and also understood the Federal Court judgment. Let's find out what the fellow law students think about it. Hey, that's my money!
But if you can answer me 3 questions, then I will give it to you.
Okay, sure.
Okay, so the first question, have you ever heard about Dato' Azizan and Concrete Parade?
Yes.
Okay, the second question, can you share about your views on this?
Alright. Okay, I think that for this case, the Federal Court provided much needed clarity on Section 85 sub 1 and also Section 223 sub 1 of the Companies Act 2016, which helped resolve the uncertainty created by the earlier Court of Appeal decision. And what stands out to me is how the court emphasized the need to balance the powers of directors and also the shareholders. The directors should be able to manage the company directly, but shareholders' rights must also be protected. And the case also reminds legal practitioners of the importance of citing accurate and up-to-date authorities, as the court criticized counsel for relying on an overruled case.
Wow, that's great. Thanks for sharing. And my last question, who is the most handsome lecturer in your view?
So can I take this 50 ringgit now?
Okay, it's yours.
Okay, thank you.